I like to start off this video with a quote from a YouTuber I enjoy watching named Wendigoon. He covers a lot of sort of conspiracies or cover-ups in the government that are quite interesting and I think worth a look. But he has this very famous quote that's made the rounds on all kinds of social media about, you know, if you were to say, the government wouldn't do that, his blunt response is, "Oh yes, they would." And I think this is one of those times in U.S. history and times, I guess, just in our government, our relationship between the people and its government, about tragedies, horrors, and things that can be fixed and things that should be fixed, and a government that claims to be of and for and by the people needs to really respond to this. But with that being said, I'd like for you to be introduced to what I was introduced to not so long ago about the Portsmouth gaseous diffusion plant, which was, from my best understanding, started in the 1950s. August 52 is the date that they started to build this huge plant in Appalachian, Ohio, in Pike County, more specifically Portsmouth, Ohio, to, produce uranium-235 and to the process of diffusion. So, from my best understanding, from my political science understanding, it's this idea of separating atoms of uranium in order to create nuclear energy used for atomic warfare, which was very, a looming threat at the time. You think about the 50s, that's the height of the Cold War. The Americans and the Soviets were going back and forth, and people had to live with the reality that a nuclear war was inevitable. So this sort of arms race was beginning to emerge. But what you found was that there was a lot of mishandling at the plant. It was said that a lot of waste was being dumped conveniently in the Ohio River, a lot of plutonium and things of that nature were not properly handled, and they began to leak out into the surrounding areas. And now there's great evidence to show that the Pike County area, and specifically the surrounding neighborhoods of people, have a higher rate of cancers, thyroids, tumors, leukemias, and just terminally ending and rare diseases and developments that are just terrible, 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 terrible. And so, when I was first introduced to this, I was like, okay, I've read this story a million times. You think you're Chernobyls, you think you're, other places of the world where these kind of developments happen. But, there has been very little progress. In the early 2000s, the Department of Energy took it over to decide on a restoration process. But you have many, many whistleblowers come out and say now, people who used to work for this nuclear diffusion plant, that there's the pipings that they're dismantling in this diffusion plant is still very harmful for the workers and for the people surrounding it. And I was a little bit skeptical, right? A whistleblower is just a whistleblower at the end of the day. But then you had an NAU professor, a professor at an accredited university, come out and do testing of his own, and he found huge. I have here. He found 3.5 times the amount of plutonium in a man's house in the surrounding areas, which is a huge, huge health risk. Like I said, causing all these cancers and these problems. But my big issue, coming from the legal perspective of things, is simply this: the government owes these people an answer, an apology to start, but an answer, and more specifically, compensation. There were a lot of bills I've read about and researched that have passed to compensate those affected, but however, the people in the surrounding areas of this Portsmouth plant in Ohio were never included. And so you have all these people, suffering and, looking like they're sort of crazy when you have professors and people, who are accredited people who used to work for the plant, who are coming out and saying, like, this is wrong and, justice must be demanded. I'm very new to this, but this has caught my attention beyond I can describe, and it's something I'm very looking forward to diving deeper into and hopefully doing my part as an outsider, as someone with hopefully potential connections, legally speaking, to get the people the justice that they deserve. I know I'm just one kid, and um, I'm not a nuclear physicist. I'm not a nuclear, theorist or whatever. I'm not a scientist. I can't understand, these very dangerous processes. But what I can understand is basic statistics to say, we have traces of plutonium and uranium that is far beyond compare, and all these people are being affected by it. And the Department of Energy very rarely cares at all. They'll run their own tests. They'll run their own analysis, and they'll come back and say, you know what, it's fine, there's no health concerns, but people are still continuing to die. I just read about one story about a father in the area whose son was a star baseball player, getting ready to go to Ohio State, and leukemia comes and takes his life away. This is not supposed to be happening. This shouldn't be happening, and the fact that this man, the only thing he has left behind of his son is a gravestone and a memorial baseball park is ridiculous, and I think justice should be served. Constitutionally speaking, this is also, in my opinion, unconstitutional. Um, I'm not too much of a constitutional scholar. Like I said, I'm only 18 years old. But when you ring of bells of the takings clause, where if your property is seized for public use by the government, you should be fairly compensated. I feel that that language, that substantive due process, can be applied to these people whose families have been grieving, a lot of lives have been taken away, and the Department of Energy has nothing to show. Even if, you know, um, the Department of Energy is super 100% correct with what they're saying the current process is crystal clear, everything's going smoothly, you don't have any public health concern. I'm still concerned myself about the people who have been affected in years prior who have not gotten any form of compensation or care from the government. I think the best example of this that I found jaw dropping is a local middle school that was found near the plant that contained high traces of uranium, and a lot of kids were, having to deal with cancers and dying of them. So, like with any school board, they shut down the school. But if you go on the Department of Energy website, they'll tell you, there's no public health concern, there's nothing, this and that. So I think, in summary, I want to keep this as short as sweet as possible without going too, into the weeds of things. Is if you're having conflicting information, a professor from Arizona finding very solid evidence to say that, and he is without a doubt 100% convinced that the plutonium and all this nuclear waste and these isotopes are coming, this leakage is coming from the gaseous diffusion plant. And then you have the Department of Energy saying, this is not something of concern for the locals. We're handling this with the best care. And then you have whistleblowers saying, though the current restoration process is killing these workers. I mean, hell, I found a YouTube video, and I know it's just a YouTube video, and the source is not 100% reliable, but a man commented on the video saying, I work at this plant in its restoration. They tell us we're fine, and but I can taste metal in my mouth every day. But it is what it is. I got to do what I got to do for my family, to provide for my family, and that's the hard hitting thing. That with this inclusive evidence, all I'm asking for, and all I will be trying to do in the future, I guess to the best of my ability, is to raise awareness. I guess use a megaphone that I have, as small or big as it is, to get people with the power and the resources to take a full, actual, realistic second look at this, so that the people can be fairly compensated and justice can be served. Like, I find it ridiculous how you have two credible sources, if you want to call the Department of Energy credible, and you want to call, this professor, which I deem credible as well, conflicting information, like vastly conflicting information, and at the crossfires you have people and children dying. It's unacceptable in my opinion, and I think this is only the beginning. I can't believe I ended up here talking about this from someone who was born and raised in the suburbs of Chicago. Here I am, but I feel like it's earned my attention, and I, I think I want to do something about it as much as I can, whatever that is. Even if it just ends up being this video and nothing else, I hope, justice can be served one day. And thank you for watching. I will see you soon.